The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head, and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Week 3 of the Houghton Heroes Fantasy Football League season. I'm your host, Dan. And on today's show, you saw it in the intro, we have a new league member. We will get to that soon. But also we have recaps of very exciting Week 2, a very entertaining Week 3 coming up. We have predictions for that. We have an interview with our new league member. We also have some Sacko things we need to take care of and talk about later in the show as well. But first off, because we have a new league member, that means someone had to exit the league. That happened to be our friend Kyle Krem. Decided not to be part of the Houghton Heroes Fantasy Football League anymore. So let's just take a look at Kyle's journey through the league and what he left us with, the lasting memory he gave us. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming today to this vigil. We are all here to remember our league mate Kyle Krem, who left us way too early, but it is beyond our control. It was his time to go. Kyle left us with a career record of 29-18. He was a .617 winning percentage. He was most notable for his wins over Andrew Benda, Simon Johnson, especially Jake, the Sacko Kempinen. He had a good record also against other members in the league, such as Drew, and even as notable as myself. He was never lost in Week 3. He also never lost in Week 11 or 12, also in his career. He averaged 94.9 points in the league every week, but he will leave us with the most lasting memory of the undefeated season, the 2012 fantasy season. He beat everyone. He didn't lose a single game. He went 16-0 on his way of trouncing the league and claiming the league championship for himself. We hope Kyle is enjoying his time wherever he is now, and we hope to join him soon. One day there. Thank you. So I'm sorry to start out the video on such a bleak note like I did, and we're going to have to transition into some more unsettling news. Now, if anyone has noted the team names as of late, yes, we've had some changing, some people trying to get the best name for their team by the December 25th deadline set by our commissioner, Kavi Pandy. However, one of the Sacko rules was for him to not make his own team name and for us to suggest names and for him to keep the one we give him. If anyone noticed, yesterday morning, Jake's team name was changed to I Am the Gateskeeper instead of Kyle and Dan's farm team, which was given to him by the league. Now, this is in blatant direct defiance of the rules that have been sent down through the league to the Sacko. Now also, not only has he changed his name, which is blatantly and obviously against the rules, has he done anything else that the Sacko was supposed to do? We've given him plenty enough time, months and months, to figure out how and when he was going to fulfill his Sacko duties, and he has yet to do any of them. I put it on the league members' shoulders to make sure that Jake must be punished for these acts of defiance. And I ask you, Jake, Does Covey look like a bitch? Does Steve look like a bitch? Do all of the other league members look like a bitch?
Oh! Then why you try to fuck him like a bitch, Brett? He did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Brett. You tried to fuck him.
And Jake, for that matter, why are we even calling you Jake? We know that your name is Sacko, and that's what we should be calling you.
What's your name?
Toby. Toby. My name is Toby.
Hi.
So again, I put it on everyone's shoulders. We need to make Jake accountable. He's 0-2 this year. He's in the running for the Sacko once again. So he needs to fulfill his duties because he's had months, plenty of time to prepare and fulfill these sanctions that have been sent down to him. There needs to be retribution, and I'm calling for it now. And with that, now let's dive in to the results from Week 2 of the Houghton Heroes Fantasy Football League. It was a very exciting week. The first matchup we had was myself, 1-0 against Andrew Benda, who was 0-1, being controlled by Kavi's team for the first week. And it happened to be Benda's birthday on Sunday. And let's just say my team gave him an early birthday present, or a very good one, I should say, scoring the least amount of points that I have in my entire career. Benda just ran through my team 100-52. No one showed up on my team besides Julio Jones with 14 points. It wasn't a very good matchup for me to start out with because after Thursday night's games, Andrew Benda had 14 points from his kicker. The Cardinals defense then scored 17 points in an early game against the Giants, and from there it was over. He got 0 points from Carlos Hyde and 1 from Pierre Garçon, which usually is a bad thing if 2 of your position players don't score you any points. But however, it didn't matter. The high scorer on his team was Arian Foster against Oakland with 20 points. Led him to a 48-point win over me. We're both at 1-1. It was not a good matchup for me. Benda, on his birthday, gets the win. The second matchup we had was 1-0 Carl against 0-1 Holly. Holly lost week 1 to Andrew scoring over 90 points. Like I said last week, if you score over 90, you don't expect to lose. Well, it happened again. She lost to Carl 96-92. Holly doesn't seem like she's having a lot of fun this fantasy football season, but Holly, no one cares. We're actually laughing at you. You talk so much shit. This is kind of karma, maybe, coming back to you. 0-2 Holly. She got some good production on her team. 22 points from Brandon Marshall. That 3-touchdown game really helped her. 17 from Nick Foles. Double digits for Eric Decker and Zach Stacy. Also, Steven Gostkowski got her 14 points. Didn't matter, though. She needed 4 more points. She only got 2 from Chris Johnson, 3 from a hurt Vernon Davis, 4 from her 49ers defense. I said that she would lose because she would try to ride those 2 players and it wouldn't work, and that's exactly what happened. As for Carl's team, Peyton Manning came back to hurt Holly. She didn't draft him this year. He posted 21 points for Carl, 20 for DeMarco Murray, the number 1 running back in fantasy this year. So far, 17 for Randall Cobb and 13 for the Panthers defense. Outside of that, not much production, but it didn't matter. He got 4 more points than what he needed, and Carl walks away from week 2 2-0. In another intriguing matchup, we had 1-0 Simon against 0-1 Kyle. This turned out to be his last matchup of his career. The historical stats suggested that Kyle would walk away this one 1-1. However, that did not happen. Riding the wave of confidence, Simon's team posted a 96-84 victory. 20 points from Alfred Morris, 26 from Jordy Nelson. He had that huge 200-yard game. 13 from Stafford and 12 from C.J. Spiller. Outside of that, not much production. The 84 points for Kyle, 22 from Gio Bernard, 0 from Jamal Charles. He ended up getting hurt. And Toby Gerhardt also got hurt with 0 points. 17 from Russell Wilson, 16 from Dez, double digits from Antonio Brown. Nothing more. When you get some zeros on the board, you know your team is going to be hurting. That's really what cost him this week. And it ended up, like I said, being his last matchup of his career. Again, we wish him well. Simon, the early leader in his division with 2-0. It was the first matchup of the season between defeated teams. We had 0-1 Jake against 0-1 Steve. I said that this would be a shoe-in victory for Steve, and that's kind of what it looked like. 106-93 for Steve. 27 points from Aaron Rodgers. He always shows up when he's playing against Jake. LaShawn McCoy with 15. Darren Sproles, the huge Monday night game with 23 points. Emmanuel Sanders with 10. Mason Crosby with 13. Got him the 106. Nothing from Reggie Bush or Jermaine Gresham. Each got him 2. And on Jake's side of the ball, 13 from Frank Gore, 2 from Demaryius Thomas, 23 from Jimmy Graham. He finally showed up now for him. Bengals D got him 11, and Adam Vinatieri got him 10. He lost with 93 points. That sucks, but you're a Sacko, so you deserve it. Jake is 0-2, leading the Sacko race once again. And in the final matchup of Week 2, we had 1-0, the Commissioner Kavi against surprise 1-0 Andrew Blake. Getting his huge first win in the first 4 weeks of the season. There was a big question mark whether Kavi could squash Drew and his hopes of going 2-0. It happened, although in a low-scoring affair, 74-69. Kavi walks away with the victory. 18 points from Andrew Luck and 15 from Nick Novak. Otherwise, not much to talk about. Other than that, his high score was DeAndre Hopkins with 8 points, 9 from Le'Veon Bell. Everyone else was pretty dismal. The thing that got Drew this week was injuries. 4 of his starting players ended up leaving the game hurt. Noshawn Moreno was injured. AJ Green was injured. Cordell Patterson didn't do much because of missing AP. Mark Ingram left hurt. However, got him 16 points before he left the game. 11 from Marshawn Lynch, 18 from Cam Newton, and 20, huge 20 spot from Delaney Walker. Got him 16-9 points, -1 from the Seahawks defense, which you never expect. However, they did not show up in San Diego at all. Drew, a familiar loss in Week 2, moves to 1-1. Kavi leading the division once more at 2-0. And with that Week 2 recap, as I've mentioned multiple times, Kyle is now no longer part of the league, and taking his spot and over for his team is Shin Shu. And we have Shin on the Sacko Moisturizing Hotline. So joining me now on the Sacko Moisturizing Hotline, the brand new member to the Houghton's Heroes Fantasy Football League, Shin Shu. Shin, I'd like to be the first to say welcome to the Fantasy League. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's great to be here. I appreciate you giving me the call. Yeah.
Anytime, of course. Being that you are now in the Fantasy Football League, do you have any previous fantasy football experience at all?
I do not. I am a fantasy football virgin. So be gentle, everybody.
All right, Shin is a virgin. We will have to note that for sure. You're currently in Texas. What brings you to Texas? We know that you obviously were here in Houghton for your younger years. You went off to college to Duke. What makes you go to Texas?
I'm in Texas for grad school. I'm getting a PhD, and so pretty soon you're going to call me Dr. Shu.
Dr. Shu. We look forward to that for sure. Do you have any smack talk or anything to say before your inaugural game, given that you are the virgin of the league?
Yeah, I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm still better than you, Jake, so suck it.
He's calling out Jake already. Have you had a chance to look at your team? Obviously, Kyle drafted it for you. What is your opinion on the team so far?
It's not the greatest. I feel maybe it might have been good week 1, but I think I guess because of all the stuff that Kyle was dropping out of the league, he wasn't keeping track of the injury report. I think he could have done a little bit better job picking up people off the waiver wire in week 2 and possibly at the beginning of week 3. And I certainly wasn't picking people up at the beginning of week 3 because I wasn't totally sure what I was doing. But now that I'm looking at the team, I see a lot of injuries, probable, questionable, that kind of stuff, and it's I wish we had more backups for this type of business.
Yeah, depth is definitely important to have during the fantasy season, especially when buys come around. You are 0-2, taking over a team that's lost both of its first 2 games. Are you still looking to make the playoffs, just not get Sacko? What's your game plan for the season, and where do you plan on ending up?
Well, you know me. I never play to lose. So I'm gonna go out there and do what I need to get done. I don't think I'm gonna get the Sacko. I think somebody else will get it. Somebody with red hair. So yeah, there's that.
Well, speaking of someone with red hair, your first matchup of your career is against Jake. You are both 2-0. The Sacko leaders so far in the season with Holly. Is there anything you'd like to say to Holly, to Jake, to either of them maybe?
Yeah. I know you guys are here at the bottom with me, but pretty soon you will be here at the bottom by yourself. So have fun with that.
Have fun with that. Being 0-3, he's talking about. How do you like your matchup with Jake? Have you been able to look at it, see how you stack up against his abysmal team?
Well, I got the early scouting report from the ESPN email. I'm projected to win by about 10 points, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable.
I see. I think you might note, or you might notice later on in the season that those projections could not be more wrong half the time. But
Yeah,
it's good. It's good that you're feeling confident. Jake is currently on an 8-game losing streak. He's 1 away from tying the all-time record of most consecutive losses. You like your chances of giving him the record, huh?
I don't know. I just look at Jake and I see that's a record holder. Jake has got what it takes to be the record holder.
Jake's got what it takes to be the worst. Thank you, Shin. We appreciate you stopping in for a brief phone call. Good luck this week against Jake, and we hope you enjoy being in the league.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
And once again, we'd like to thank Shin for being on our program today, courtesy of the Sacko Moisturizing Hotline. Our guys at Sacko Cream have helped us out immensely this season, and their work is splendid. There was a trade that happened between Jake and Steve. Now, this trade involved Vincent Jackson and Ahmad Bradshaw. Now, most people would say this is a fairly decent trade, fairly even trade. However, I would argue that Jake actually trade raped Steve. Now, hear me out now. Both players look to be okay. We know that Vincent Jackson is a starter for Tampa Bay, and Ahmad Bradshaw is the backup for Trent Richardson. But if we look at Vincent Jackson's last 19 games, these are his point totals: 15, 7, 3, 2, 23, 25, 7, 1, 2, 22, 6, 7, 13, 11, 9, 3, 3, 5, and 7, which he got on Thursday night. 6 of those 19 games have been in double digits, so that's meaning 10 or more, which is only 31% of his games. Now, yes, he has some mid-20s in there. He has a 13, a 15 in there. But he also has a couple 1s, a couple 2s, and a plethora of 3s. Now, his average, I'm sure, averages out to be a top 20 wide receiver. But how can you tell if he's going to show up with a 22-point game or a 3-point game? I personally would hate to have him on my team, and that's why I think Jake actually trade raped Steve, because, yes, he might average 9 to 11 points per week, but one week he might score 1, and the next week he might score 22, so that average would be 11.5. That's kind of not what we want in fantasy. You shoot for consistency, and Vincent Jackson is actually the poster child for inconsistent. Now, if we look on the other side of the trade, Ahmad Bradshaw is supposedly supposed to be the backup to Trent Richardson. However, their touches this season are 31 to 26 in favor of Trent. Their total yards gained, however, are 181 for Bradshaw and 146 for Richardson. Now, that equates to 6.9 yards per touch for Bradshaw and 4.7 for Trent Richardson. Also, the touchdown ratio is 2-0 for Bradshaw, and this is only going to continue. Everyone knows that Trent Richardson can't do anything in that offense. He did nothing last year, and he's done nothing this year so far. I expect for Bradshaw to eventually overtake Trent Richardson before week 7 as the starter, making him way more valuable than Vincent Jackson is, which is why I believe Jake got the better end of this trade. And after further ado, let's dive into the week 3 matchups with his first matchup of his career in the Houghton Heroes Fantasy Football League. we have Shin versus Jake. This is a very early Sacko matchup right now. 0-2, both are the teams. In history, teams are 4-6 in their first game in the league. Jake currently is on an 8-game losing streak. He is 1 away from tying the all-time career record, and he is also 0-3 in Week 3. Kyle's team has scored 76 and 84 points this year, and Shin is taking over. But we all know that everything is bigger in Texas, so we're expecting Shin to rebound with this team and up that point total about 20 points. Now, the stats show for Jake's team that the longer Kirk Cousins plays, the worse he gets. Yes, he had a good first week. He might have a decent second week, but again, the longer he plays, the worse he plays. Frank Gore and Ahmad Bradshaw should have good games this week, but I'm expecting nothing from Ellington and Cooks. As for Shin's team, I think Dez and Giovanni Bernard explode this week. But however, starting Hill, the backup for Gio, I think it's a bad idea. I think it's really limiting your upside. Yes, he's had some good games, but I feel like if they stay away from the goal line, then he's not going to get that many touches. I think Russell Wilson had a good Super Bowl versus the Broncos. However, I only think he gets about 13 to 14 points here. And I can't believe I'm saying this, and I really apologize, Shin, but I really see Jake taking this matchup, moving Shin to 0-3. Our next matchup of this division comes with 2-0 Simon against 1-1 Benda. Kabi is still controlling Benda's team as of now, and he has scored 100 points since week 11. Benda's team has. Benda is 2-4 also versus Simon, not looking good for him, and Simon has the longest winning streak in the league, tied with Kabi for 4 games. Also, Simon is averaging 100 points this season per week, not looking good for Benda. The lines will shine again for Simon, is what I believe. I like Alfred Morris and Jordy Nelson in their matchups as well. I think you should sit Harvin and Rudolph. The Vikings offense is terrible without Peterson, and I don't think it gets any better. As for Benda, I think Breeze goes off at home for his first home game this season. Macklin and Crabtree also have good games. Thomas does not have a touchdown, in my opinion, this week against Seattle. I think Ivory turns it around, picks up the slack, has a good game for the Jets. I think Simon wins, however, against Benda in a high-scoring affair, moving him to 3-0, unprecedented in Simon's career. And probably the most intriguing matchup of Week 3 is one that we always look forward to in the fantasy football season. We have 0-2 Holly against 1-1 Steve. Now, coming into this, it has been said, there are rumors floating around, that the winner of this game gets to pick the color of the bridesmaids' dresses. Holly is fighting for purple, and Steve is fighting for a greenish color, from what I understand. Holly is currently in the cowgirl position, leading the matchup 4-3 all time. However, she's starting 0-2 for the first time in her career. Steve was the high scorer in Week 2, riding that wave of momentum, and Steve has started with a loss and a win only 2 times in his career. In each of those times, he's made the playoffs. So he likes where he's sitting so far, despite being 1-1. As for Steve, I think Richardson, T-Rich, is a dud, like he always is. I don't think he's going to do much. Move him out of your lineup if you can. But I think Aaron Rodgers and LaShawn McCoy shine, but it's too early to tell about Stephen Ridley. Yeah, he had a good game last week, but the Patriots' offense is always an enigma. We don't ever know what they're going to do. Vincent Jackson got him at merely 7 points. He's winning 7-0 right now, their matchup. Like I said, you kind of want more from him, but 7's not a terrible number. I think Sanders gets him a TD today, I think Sanders gets him a TD on Sunday against the Seahawks, and I think it's a good play for him to start the Texans' defense. As for Holly, I think color is a strong play this week. I can't say the same about Zach Stacy against the Dallas defense, and I like Lamar Miller this week for Miami. Marshall and Davis are injured, although I think they play this week. And watch their statuses, because if they can't play, I think Holly's team is hurting, and if they can't play, I think she wins. But I bet that they do play, and I think that Holly wins this matchup. She gets her first win of the season, and also bridesmaids will be looking good in lavender. And in an early season matchup for division supremacy, we have Carl 2-0 against Kavi 2-0. Carl is 2-0 for the second time in his career, and the first time that he went 2-0, He rode that to a 9-game winning streak, the second longest in the league behind Kyle's undefeated season. Carl is only 13-10 following a win, however, and Kavi is already 2-0 against undefeated teams this year. Let's see if he can make it 3. Kavi has started every season 2-0 and started 3-0 2 of those 3 seasons, so it looks like history is on his side to repeat with a win. I think luck has a good game for Kavi. I think Lacey is still held in check, though, with Detroit's good defensive line, along with Le'Veon Bell this week. Both of his wide receivers are injured. It's not a really good formula for a win. For Carl, Manning versus the Seahawks D, you never know. The Seahawks D looked amazing in Week 1, and then they just shit the bed in Week 2 against the Chargers. However, I think DeMarco Murray has a good game this week, the number 1 running back in fantasy. And there are questions with Kyrie Robinson, Wes Welker, and Rob Gronkowski. We'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of question marks coming into this matchup. I think that it ends up with Carl winning, taking the early division lead, moving to 3-0. And in the final matchup of Week 3, we have myself against 1-1 Andrew. I kind of feel bad for Drew because after the Thursday night games, it's already 51-0 in favor of me. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones just went off on Thursday night. To continue the heartbreak, Drew, after last week, had 4 injured starters on his team. Drew is 8-17 in his career following a loss. Not good numbers, but he has scored 103.25 points in those 8 wins after a loss. So he's either going to score a lot of points or nothing at all. Like I said, my lowest scoring amount in my career happened last week with 52 points. I already have 51, so it's looking good that I won't break that record this week. And I'm 5-5 in my career after a loss, and 2-0 in my career against Drew. I'm already up 5-1. However, I don't see much explosiveness in my roster. I think Forte and Bell give me some points, but I have a lot of questions around Davis and Pitta on my team. Niles, I don't know if he's going to play. Jamal Charles has been looking good in practice. He's been practicing, looks like he's getting healthy really quick. Might have to make a roster change there. And Drew's roster has been decimated. There's questions around AJ Green, whether he's going to play or not. Marquise Colston didn't get a target last week. Who knows what's going on in their offense down in New Orleans. I think Lynch is his only strong play. And despite this, I think I'm going to win this week, but I think it's going to be close. So I move to 2-1, Drew to 0-2, and that's going to wrap up our Week 3. So thank you for tuning in this week. We want to thank our sponsor, Sacko Cream, for all the stats that they give us week in and week out in this beautiful studio. Hope everyone has a good Week 3. Good luck in their matchups. I will not be around next week for Week 4. I will be at a wedding in Grand Rapids. The videos will be on a bye. I will see you all in Week 5.